Hello, and thank you guys so much for joining us here today. I am joined by our awesome managing attorney, Ruby Powers. And today we're going to be discussing on the green card via the provisional waiver or the I-601A waiver. Attorney Powers is going to go ahead and give us the whole deets on what this consists of, requirements, deadlines, stocks, all that hot stuff. But just a little bit on our attorney here. She founded our firm since 2009. So PLG has been going strong for a while now. Woohoo. She's a board certified immigration attorney. And she's also an author of Build and Manage a Successful Immigration Law Practice Without Losing Your Mind. She shares her own personal experience on those as an attorney. So it's a really good read, guys. 1010 would recommend. And fun stuff, we also founded Power Strategy Group, LLC in 2020. So the pandemic could not stop us, guys. We're just rocking and rolling. So I'm going to go ahead and let Attorney Powers take it away with the learning objectives.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience for those who registered. We are had an unexpected delay. We are here now. So we're talking about provisional waivers. I love them. I have a very intimate relationship with them. I remember when they came out in March 2013. I had just had a child, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, why is this coming out when I'm just had my second kid?" And I've got to go back to work. Such a workaholic. But anyway, but when I've been doing waivers since I started practicing law in 2008, and I learned from an attorney who did them almost exclusively. And we were sending clients to Juarez and all around the world for the I-601 unlawful presence waiver, when many attorneys were afraid to do so for many different reasons, because it is a heavy lift to do so, and you're potentially unsure if they would be able to come out with an issue. But then under the Obama administration, they realized that this was keeping a lot of people from moving forward. And so he created the provisional waiver, basically saying that if you had a pretty clean cut case and your only problem was unlawful presence, you could submit the waiver here in the country, so that when you go to the post abroad, you're not waiting too long. And the wait, as opposed to what it used to be before that 2013 that I mentioned, March, you had to wait for the waiver to be adjudicated outside the country. And there even was a pilot program in Juarez for a little while, which was really great. And I think they use that as a great way to move forward to here. So we're going to talk about provisional waiver, how important it is to screen. So the attorney that's talking to you, or if it's you want to hire us, whatever you want to do, is asking you lots of questions. And this whole process can take a couple of years. So it's really important to have an ongoing dialogue with your attorney. And this is also, this doesn't take the place, as I always say, of a consultation or legal advice, but you should definitely have a consultation, and you can call us if you'd like. But really what's important is this is a great program. It does work. It takes time, and you need to have an attorney who knows waivers and knows inadmissibilities. And so we're going to talk about the rest of this. So the provisional waiver allows certain immigrant visa applicants with relatives who are U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents to apply for a provisional waiver to waive unlawful presence before departing when they go to their consulate appointment. So it's pursuant to 212A and 9B. Now, this is a general concept. I usually teach this to other attorneys or law students and stuff. So it's harder to make it more simpler, actually. But really, when they created IRA, it's a law. It was in 1996, and on April 1st, 1997 is when unlawful presence was created. Can you believe that? Before it didn't exist as unlawful presence. And so all of these issues happened after April 1st, 1997. So when you have a consultation with me, I'll be like, when did you enter? When did you leave? When did you enter? Entries and exits are really important, down to the day. I have to count dates, time. It gets a little crazy. So anyway, what I do is that I'm trying to find out if you are just going to have a 3-year bar, a 10-year bar, or permanent bar. And there's so many exceptions, so it's really important to stay on top of all of that. But the general concept where we do a provisional waiver is like, it's generally like this: one person entered, like, let's say illegally one time. After some time, it bled into April 1st, 1997, and they overstayed for, usually it could be more than a year or so. And they have a US citizen spouse, or they have a visa available and they have a US citizen spouse, parent, or legal permanent resident spouse or parent that would be a qualifying relative. And we have to show the extreme hardship to that qualifying relative, why the qualifying relative can't move back to the home country, and why can't live without this relative. If we can demonstrate all of that, then the provisional waiver can be approved. But there's just so many moving parts. This is just one piece of the whole picture. So when I teach attorneys or law students, or when I talk about this, I talk about how it's important to scan for any inadmissibilities. Inadmissibility is like a fancy word for, like, why would the US not let you in? It's like if you are knocking at the door to come to the US, and the US is like scanning you, trying to see, is there anything you have wrong in their mind according to the law, like crimes, or did you ever lie to them, things like that, then they will then you might need you check to see if there's a waiver for that thing, that inadmissibility. And when I say step one is to check for any real ones or perceived, sometimes you might not think something's a problem, but the USCIS or the Department of State or somebody might think it is an inadmissibility. So that's why when my firm looks at your case, we double check things to make sure what we would think if it would pop up later on. Other things, sometimes Department of State finds some problems that USCIS doesn't find, and vice versa. So that also depends on where you're applying. Then the other thing is we check to see if there's a waiver for it. So sometimes there isn't a waiver for something, and that's really horrible. But we have to check for things. Like, for example, this is really random, but the fourth preference category doesn't have a waiver for alien smuggling. So there's no waivers for certain crimes or drugs, if you have a crime for certain drugs and things like that. So, but when we're talking about provisional waivers, we're talking about pretty clean-ish cases. Usually they're only entered one time, maybe 2 or 3, but there was some voluntary returns and there didn't trigger a permanent bar. And then we're about to send you or the immigrant abroad to finish up the case. So let's say we found only one problem, unlawful presence. We're going to do this waiver, and they have all the qualifying relatives we need. When I do hypos, sometimes when I'm trying to explain things, it makes it make more sense. So Dana, why don't you read the first line under hypo 1, under the hypos.
Of course. So hypo 1, entered without inspection in 1996, one time without problems and never left. Eligible.
So then my answer is they are eligible for the provisional waiver if they have the qualifying relative and the visa available, because they entered only one time. They're coming to me. Let's say they have a U.S. citizen spouse. That means they get the visa and the qualifying relative, 2 for 1 right there. And so it works. So why don't you read the first 2 lines of hypo 2?
So they entered without inspection in April 1st, 1997 and stayed for 6 months and then left. And then we have another hypo that they entered without inspection in 1998 and never left. Who's eligible?
So usually when a person's coming to me, they're here in the US and we're preparing them to leave. So we look at the factors here. So this person's not eligible for the provisional waiver because the next time they leave, they will be permanently barred. They overstayed 6 months. They left, so they had a 3-year bar, and now they're here and they overstayed a lot of years. So the next time. So this is not a good provisional waiver case. Next hypo.
So they entered without inspection at age 10, then received DACA before age 18, and has kept it. Are they
Yeah,
eligible?
so that's hypo 4.
Mhm.
They don't need a provisional waiver because they haven't accrued unlawful presence. So this is one of those things where that's examples of we have clients like this. They got DACA before they turned 18. They didn't start accruing unlawful presence, and so we don't have to worry about that. And then to hypo 3 goes. We skipped over quickly, but basically, could you read the first 2 lines of hypo 3?
Yeah, so they entered without inspection in 2001 and received voluntary return the same day and returned back home. And then they entered without inspection in 2002 and never left.
So
Are they
this
eligible?
person is actually eligible because it was a voluntary return in 2001. So we don't really see a lot of voluntary returns past around 9/11, 2001-ish, around that time. A lot of clients say they don't know what happened, so we always ask them to do a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request. But in this situation, we've had a handful of people like this. We were okay. Some attorneys who aren't experienced don't do the FOIA, don't know. They might think that you're permanently barred. It does sound really scary, but actually you're fine in hypo 3. So that's why it's important to screen and have experience. So remember I said 2013 they came out with a provisional waiver. Well, then there was some 3 years or so into it. They're like, hey, you know what? It's going well, but let's make some improvements. So they expanded it. So they expanded the qualifying relatives or the visas available. So it didn't have to be just immediate relatives. It also could be other types of visas. That gave a lot of people options who had visas available. Maybe they were a over 21-year-old child of a legal permanent resident, and the visa had been pending a long time, but now they could do it because they were allowed. The visa was available and they had a qualifying relative. So they expanded the individuals' visa availability. They also allowed some people who had certain final orders of removal to go apply for an I-212 and then do an I-601A. And actually since this came out 5 years ago, we have some cases like this, but we have one that's the closest to finishing. It took 2 years for the I-212. I think it took a year or so for the provisional waiver. And so we're now, I know it says 5 years ago, but like by the time we're here, we're looking forward to finishing up a case like that, and the consulates were closed. So anyway, this bottom line expanded options for the provisional waiver. So, the way to look at it are, you have to, when we apply, you're here in the US, you have a visa available, and then you would be able to show the extreme hardship to your US citizen, legal permanent resident, spouse, or parent. One thing, they do not say child. They do not say child. So make sure that you understand that. It's a legal permanent resident or US citizen, spouse, or parent. And that you would need this waiver. The waiver, the filing fee is $630 plus the biometrics of 85. And so this is a typical timeline that you'd be looking at. It doesn't have to be an I-130. It could be with an I-140 or something else, but basically this is a typical thing we would see. An I-130 is submitted and approved, then we would submit the National Visa Center process, which is taking almost a year or more. We would just submit it showing that we're going to move forward with the provisional waiver. The provisional waiver takes us a couple of months to prepare with our clients, a collection of documents and working together. And then once it's filed, it can take several months for the I-601A to be approved. You can decide whether you want to move forward with the National Visa Center while the waiver is pending, or you could wait till the waiver is approved, adjudicated, to move forward. And then we wait for the visa appointments, which, Juarez is one of the largest embassies and in the world. And we've only had 2 appointments with them since COVID so far. And so they are slowly picking up, but all of the other ones as well. At the visa appointment, when you leave the country, the US, to go to this appointment, that's when you trigger that bar. But, fingers crossed, everything we've screened and watched everything, that this provisional waiver will be fine. It's called provisional waiver because it's provisionally approved that when you go, they will find no other problems other than the unlawful presence. You do the medical exam abroad, the biometrics abroad, you do the visa appointment. If all is well, they will give you the visa and your passport, and you'll get a packet that says do not open, and you will come back across and when you do, you will then and you pay the visa fee, your green card will come in the mail. Everything is on your duty to prove that it's a favorable exercise of discretion. So you can't say, well, they should have some of my documents because I applied for something else before, or I mean, obviously it's a hardship. No, it's not obvious. Nothing's obvious. We have to prove it. And so we prove, financial, like if you came at a young age and you've been here all your life, if you have a lot of ties to the US, these are also important. Financial factors, what you do in the community, how involved you are. If you have anything negative, like a certain crimes or something that could disqualify you for this. So it has to be a pretty clean case. But we look at all of those things as well. For the provisional waiver, it has to be pretty clean, but it's balancing those equities. If someone's in the military, if there's in your family, if we could explore military parole in place, but otherwise, if we can show any other of these really great things about you or the hardship to your qualifying relative. You can have multiple qualifying relatives also. So if you have a U.S. citizen spouse and a legal permanent resident parent, then let's throw in all the hardship we possibly can. And hardship, when we talk about hardship, we talk about things from like financial, medical, we're talking about professional, like, will your spouse be able to find a job in the other country? Do they speak Spanish? Do they speak whatever language is there? Do they culturally will be different? Do you have custody with a child that you need to have in the US? You can't relocate. You talk about all of these things. Your life becomes an open book. When you go abroad to the appointment, it doesn't just end. We're talking about the waiver, but we don't just finish with the waiver. We prep our clients. We talk on what to expect. The medical exam is an extension of the visa appointment. They're going to ask lots of questions about crimes, alcohol, drugs, tattoos, anything. Did you have any kids? Where were the kids born? All of these things, these could lead to inadmissibilities. They're screening for inadmissibilities. You do the biometrics, and Juarez, they have the biometrics there, and there's a lot of it's in a place close to the embassy that a lot of people are taking note that people are going to these appointments and they might try to scam you. So you have to be careful. That's why we also prep our clients a lot. I've had a tour of the embassy in Juarez, and that's just one example, but basically at any appointment location, you have maybe only 5 or 7 minutes, and the officer has your file open, has reviewed some of your documents, and you need to know what's inside your packet and be able to explain it. Your whole life, really, it's like a thesis, like depends on those 5 to 7 minutes, because they are going to ask you some questions and you be able to be prepared. So that's why we prepare our clients for that. And if you're approved, then you'll get the visa and your passport, and you'll get to come back in. Yay. Now, if this doesn't work for you because you entered too many times, or you don't have a qualifying relative, or what have you, and also when we send clients abroad, they're usually gone for only a few weeks. So a lot of people come to me and they say, I don't want to leave the country. Well, of course you don't want to. I understand, but this is like way better from a person who's been watching this for 13 years or more. This is way better than having to apply for the waiver and wait a year or two abroad. But to the fact that you can get down to only having to be out of the country for 2 to 3 weeks is amazing, actually. Some people take it as a family vacation, or they go visit all the family they haven't seen in forever. But if you need to, we also review all the other alternatives. Like, is there military parole in place option? And actually it says may end soon because we had last put this together under the Trump administration, but it is still alive and well. Are you eligible under 245I? Are you eligible under a U visa, Violence Against Women Act, cancellation removal in immigration court, asylum registry? Registry is an oldie but a goodie. Have you been here since January 1st, 1972? Western Hemisphere reform potential. We're waiting for reform, but we haven't found it yet. But I think this is a good plan to have. For a lot of people earlier in 2021, we thought, oh, maybe provisional waivers won't be needed because we'll get reform, but I don't see that happening necessarily right now. I think that if you're eligible for this, you should still move forward for it, because a normal provisional waiver process can take about 2 to 3 years. I know that sounds like a long time, but so many of our clients are happy that we did it and that we were there, the coaches, through this whole process. And we have plenty of cases like this. We've sent like probably hundreds of people abroad, maybe more. I mean, and the firm's 12 years old now. If you count my whole career, I've done a significant amount of waivers the entire time I've practiced. We have clients ahead of you at all times, so we can tell you what the trends are, how long things are taking, what's going on. So that was a really fast provisional waiver talk, probably the fastest I've ever done in my whole life. I can talk about waivers like all day, but Dana, why don't you tell people how they can stay connected to us? And if anybody has questions, feel free to put it in the Q&A, and also contact us for any consult.
Of course. So thank you, Ruby, for giving us all this wholesome information. Ruby is an expert in waivers, as she has informed you guys. But again, we have spoken about waivers back in October, a little bit different. But if you all want to go check that out, go to our YouTube. You can also find it on our Facebook. Follow us at Ruby Powers Law. And whenever you go to our website, fun stuff, also, you can subscribe to our newsletter. So right here, Ruby Powers Law, I don't know if you guys can see right here. You go to our website, boom, pop up, type in your name, email, and you're subscribed to our newsletter, in which we send out bi-weekly with important immigration information, something that's been up in the news, maybe a new form change, something new with USCIS, or what have you. We always try and stay up to date and make sure that our clients, friends, followers are also up to date with the latest on immigration news and trends. So I would recommend you guys sign up to that newsletter and check out our social medias as well. We tend to post regularly, at least 2 to 3 times a day, on pressing things that have been going on in the media. But as for now, we're going to hop on to the I-601A provisional waiver in Spanish. So we will see you guys there if you all want to join us.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, and if you want to have a consultation on the provisional waiver, please, give us a call at 713-589-2085. We're doing in person, we're doing Zoom, phone. We have, you can do it in English and Spanish, and if you need another language, you can find us an interpreter. We'll help you through that. And it's really important to trust your attorney, to screen your whole case, to observe any possible alternative options. But ultimately, don't be intimidated by the fact that you'd have to go abroad. Don't be intimidated that could take 2 or 3 years. Honestly, so many of our clients, like I wish we should get some of our former clients on to tell them this directly, Dana, but are so grateful that we guided them through this whole process. And now they have the social security number, driver's license, they can work, they can do whatever they want with their jobs and their career. And they don't have to be worried about being, detained or picked up at a stop sign or something like that. And they can build a stronger future, or more stable future for their children and their families. So that's why we love doing this. And we have lots of experience. And so if you have any questions, give us a call, and thank you so much for watching.
Thank you guys. I hope